Hi class, in this video I'm going to go over the axial skeleton. So first I'm going to start with the sutures. So the sutures connect the cranial bones here. Okay, so first let's talk about what these bones are. This here is the frontal bone, right, covers the forehead area. These two on the sides are the parietal bone, or on the top, left and right. On the sides here are the temporal bones. Okay, right where your temples are. And then back here we have the occipital bone. Okay. This guy falls apart really easily. Okay. So those are the bones. Let me just put him back together. Okay. So the sutures, we have the sagittal suture, which is in the sagittal plane here. So it separates the two parietal bones from each other. The coronal suture is like a coronal cut, right? Cuts into anterior and posterior parts. So this here is the coronal suture, okay? On the side here, separating the temporal bone from the parietal is the squamous suture. And then there's gonna be one on the other side as well. And then the last one is the lambdoid suture, okay? So that separates the occipital from the parietal bones, okay? Let's go through the fontanelles while we're kind of talking about sutures here. So this is a fetal skull, okay? And you know how babies have that soft spot on the top of their head? Well, their brain is covered but by connective tissue, okay? Not by bone in that specific area, okay? And there's a few other areas like that, but this anterior one is the largest. And this is because it makes the skull more movable during childbirth, and also the baby's brain does most of its growing between the ages of 0 and 2. Most of it is between 0 and 1, okay? Now once the brain is done growing, the bones are going to calcify or ossify, harden, and cover those spots, okay? And then they become the sutures. Okay, so these are known as fontanelles. So this here is the anterior fontanelle. The one in the back here is the occipital fontanelle, right, because it's right above the occipital bone. And then we have two others, an anterolateral, which is on both sides. So it's anterior and it's on the lateral side. This is also known as the sphenoid suture. And then the mastoid, also known as the posterolateral sutures. So in the back sides of the fetal skull here, okay? All right, so those are the sutures. Now let's talk about some of the bone markings and other bones on the skull, okay? I'm just gonna take this off because there's something really else important there that we haven't already discussed. Okay, so bone markings you need to know on the occipital bone here. First is, I'm just gonna turn the skull upside down here, okay? This large opening here, this is the foramen magnum. This foramen is an opening, right? And magnum means large. So it's a large opening. This is the space where the spinal cord passes through the skull, okay? These here are the occipital condyles, okay? So those are, they articulate with C1, the first cervical vertebra, and it's how we can nod our head. So we can nod our head because of these that sit on C1. Okay. And then let me see what else you need to know. The external occipital protuberance is this area here. Okay. No markings on the parietal bones. Frontal bones, you need to know the sinuses. So there are sinuses in, they're always named after the bone that they're in. You can't see them. You can't see them on the model. The models that we have, but that would be shown potentially in a picture. But frontal sinuses are within the frontal bone. We have maxillary sinuses within this bone here, which is the maxilla, and then we have sphenoidal sinuses, which I'll show you when we get to this bone, and ethmoidal sinuses, which is in this bone. This bone is found right behind the nose, so it's like right in here. And then this butterfly-shaped bone, the sphenoid bone, is found in this area here. And then you can see it at the top as well, so we'll get to that probably in a different video because those ones are a little bit more in-depth. But those are the 4 bones that have sinuses, and the sinuses are just named after the bone that they're found in. Okay, so they're spaces, they help to lighten the bone, and mucus is created there. Okay, the temporal bone, so that's the side bone here. We have the external acoustic meatus or meatus. That's this opening here. So sound travels through there. That's right where our ears are. Okay. The mandibular fossa is this indentation here where the mandible, the jawbone, is going to articulate. Okay. So a fossa is like an indentation. So this one here is the mandibular fossa. Okay. Mastoid process is this one that my thumb is on here. Mastoid process. Okay, so mastication means chewing. You can kind of feel that bone there when you're chewing. Let's talk here is the styloid process. So I'm trying to show you that while I'm here. Styloid process. Okay, what else do you need to know? Zygomatic process is this one here, and it leads to the zygomatic bone. Okay, so the zygomatic bone is this one, the cheekbone here. So this one here is a zygomatic bone, or zygomatic process, sorry. Jugular foramen is this opening here. It's between the styloid process and the mastoid process. Okay, so nerves pass through here. Okay, so jugular foramen. Okay, just trying to see what else you need to know here. Okay, that's it for temporal. I'm going to skip over sphenoid and ethmoid for now. I'll do that in a separate video because those are a little bit more in-depth. Okay, so maxilla, this here is the maxilla, also known as the maxillary bones. It's technically 2 bones fused together at this point here. Okay. Okay, so palatine process, that's like the hard palate. It's this area here. Okay, palatine process. This area here is the palatine bone. So palatine bone, palatine process. This is not technically part of the maxilla though. Okay, now if we go back here, the alveolar process is the area right above the teeth. Alveolar process, and it's the same on the mandible. This area here is the alveolar process where the teeth embed into. Okay, and again, you have maxillary sinuses in the maxilla, which we can't see on these models. Okay, so this is a palatine bone. The horizontal plate is the area that comes out here and here. Okay, the nasal bones. Let me pull this one that's not completely apart here. These here are the nasal bones. It's technically 2 bones, okay? So those are the nasal bones there in this white color. The vomer bone is this like macaroni and cheese colored bone within the nose there. That's the vomer bone. The inferior nasal conchae are these yellow ones inside of here, inferior nasal conchae. You can see it in here as well, inferior nasal conchae on the sides. Okay. This here is the zygomatic bone. Again, that's the cheek bone. And then the temporal process is this area here that articulates with the zygomatic process of the temporal bone. Okay. Lacrimal bones are to the side here and here. Okay. Lacrimal sulcus is just like where it indents in. Okay, mandible. So here we have our mandible. Okay. Alveolar process, again, that's the area where the teeth fit into. Okay, the condylar process is back here, these flat ones, and the coronoid process are these kind of sharp ones here. Okay. All right, I'm gonna make a second video and go over the sphenoid and ethmoid bones.